Today's show features Kristen Gerali, founder of Alive Rescue, and Erin Kowalski, founder of Wild Hearts. I'm so excited to be here with Kristen Gerali, the founder of Alive Rescue, and Erin Kowalski, the founder of Wild Hearts. Welcome to the One Girl Evolution podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you back on, Kristen, because you've been on the podcast before, because I know you've been working on so many different things with Alive and to share all about that. And Erin, I'm so excited to get to know you more and more about Wild Hearts and everything else that you're involved in. But before we get into that, I'd love to hear from each of you, who is a One Girl Evolution? Who is a woman or girl that has inspired you in your life? Kristen, we'll start with you.
Wow. I thought about this question a lot, actually, and it was hard for me to just narrow it down to one person, because I feel like a lot of women inspire me just in rescue alone. And I thought about when you asked me to do this in person, which was exciting, and asked who would I recommend in the community. And so I feel like in general, like the Chicago rescue community is an inspiration to me. And I was able to think of so many people. So like women like Erin and Sarah from Live Like Rue, who just make the Chicago rescue community what it is. I feel like we're a unique group of women in that we all have our niche, and we're all really good at what we do. And it's a group of really strong, powerful women, and we just make animal rescue in Chicago like what it is. So I feel for me, it's the community here in Chicago and all the women that I work with to make the lives of animals like these two better.
And I didn't even introduce them. Poppy and Pokey.
Oh yeah, these
We're
two.
also joined by these two lovely little guests who are rescues.
I'm very tired.
Yeah. Erin, what about you? Who's a One Girl Evolution in your life?
Well, I echo everything Kristen has just said about the rescue community here in Chicago. But one person that personally has affected me actually is a woman named Shannon Downey. So if you don't know who she is, she's local to Chicago. She's a craftivist, so she does like embroidery work and cross stitch and stuff. And she started off doing it kind of as a hobby, and she's kind of grown into this celebrity figure, combining her crafts as well as being active in different social events. And she basically packed up her home, sold everything, and bought an RV, and is now touring around the United States. And so for me, the braveness that she embodies is pretty incredible.
That's amazing. Yeah, and what you said, Kristen, just about how the rescue community has really bonded together. That's one thing that I've been so inspired by, getting to know you, now getting to know Erin, getting to know Sarah, all these other women who are part of the rescue movement of sorts in Chicago. It's like everybody's so supportive, which I think we need more of that in the world too, where women are supporting one another, because we see so often where women are cutting one another down or there's competition. So it's really beautiful to see women like you working together. And yeah,
I think that we see the power behind that, and we see how much more we can accomplish together.
And you've accomplished so much, and there's so much more to come for both of you and for your organizations and all the other organizations in Chicago. But before we get into the work that you do, and I know, Kristen, you've already been on the podcast, but I'd love to revisit your story a little bit. I'd love to hear just a little bit about your own story, who you are, where you're from, and maybe just how you got involved in rescue. So Kristen, we'll start with you again.
Okay, yeah. So I grew up here, just in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, so I've been here my whole life, haven't left yet. And grew up, we always had a pet in the house that I was drawn to. My grandmother on my mother's side grew up in Wisconsin on a farm, so we would do our family reunions up there, and I got to hang out with the farm animals, and it just always felt like home to me, just being around animals. So just, I don't know, there was just a feeling that I would get when I was with animals that I never experienced in any other situations. And just fast forward, Hurricane Katrina, and going down for that just kind of changed me. And I went down for a week and just helped with animal rescue efforts. And when I came back, I realized like that's what I wanted to do with my life, was dedicate it to helping animals in some way. And so eventually started Alive Rescue, and yeah, here we are. We just celebrated our 13th birthday, so it's pretty incredible.
That's incredible. I can't wait to hear more about Alive Rescue and everything that you're doing and where you're going from here, because there's so much that you have going on. But Erin, what about you? What's a little bit about your story, your background, and how you got involved?
So I grew up with animals. My mom was a veterinary technician. So the first kind of 6 years of my life, I kind of grew up in the back of a vet clinic, just kind of roaming around. So I was always surrounded by animals. Hitting adulthood, realized there was a huge need for volunteers in the rescue community. So quickly found my place as a foster parent. Have fostered, close to 100 pets, if not over that. But the first one that kind of brought me into what I'm doing now was a puppy named Bialy, who was paralyzed and incontinent. So she was my first experience with a neurologic pet that had a little bit more of a specialized care or need. And she kind of brought me to where I am today, realizing that there were very little to no resources out there for caregivers of pets with mobility impairments. So that's how Wild Hearts got born, out of that experience with her.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Wild Hearts. What is Wild Hearts for people that are listening or watching? Tell me more about the work that you do, and how did it start, the spark?
Yeah, so the spark came from Bialy. She was my 64th foster and first foster failure back in 2010, I believe, or 11, about 10 years ago. And so, like I said, I realized quickly that there wasn't a lot of help out there for me. I didn't know which diapers to use that actually stayed on. I didn't know how to properly care for bladder expression. Like, how do you do that? So there was a lot of things that I learned along the way. And when she passed, I realized that I wanted to do more to help others in the same situation as me. So we're a nonprofit that financially sponsors pets with mobility impairments. We work both with the rescue community as well as the pet owning community, get the resources and care that they need to thrive. And I think we are a little bit unique in that we do help both those different groups and communities of people, because I feel like what's out there, the organizations that are out there now either help one or the other, but not both together, and at the array of services that we're able to offer through educational experiences, financial support, equipment and supplies, kind of do a whole holistic approach to it.
That's really incredible, because there's so many people that either they want to adopt an animal that has mobility issues, or maybe their animal had something happen and then they have to kind of figure out how to deal with that. And there aren't a lot of resources, but I feel like more and more there are becoming more resources because of people like you and what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the veterinary community takes it so far, and it's people like us that are able to step in and get them the next, navigate the next part of care with them.
That's awesome. Tell me about Pokey.
Yeah, so Pokey's chewing off my fingers right now. But he's a puppy. He's about 4 months old right now, but he was born with congenital abnormalities, particularly of his elbows. So his elbows are actually subluxating. They're not lined up correctly, which is causing, I don't know if you can see this, but it's causing him to kind of turn out a little bit. And so he's actually walking on his antebrachium, so he's walking on his forearms instead of the paws like a normal puppy would. So we teamed up with another local Chicago rescue called Chicagoland Bully Breed, and we're sponsoring his care financially, and they're taking care of placing him in a permanent home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kristen, let's talk about Alive Rescue. People that listen to the podcast may have heard your previous episode, but for people that haven't, or people that are newly coming to One Girl or just learning about Alive now, talk to me about what Alive Rescue is.
Yeah, so a lot has happened since we talked,
right?
A pandemic. So we are, like I said, we started 13 years ago. Initially, we were just a foster-based rescue, taking in dogs and cats. We've added rabbits since then, so that's been fun. And we try to save animals from our local shelters here in Chicago. That's our main mission, is just to help lower the euthanasia rate in Chicago by taking animals that need us the most. Hi, Bob.
Okay.
And placing them either in a foster home, or we have a shelter that they can go to temporarily. We provide all medical care for them. We like to take in harder cases, so like the seniors, the pregnant moms, like he came from, his mom.
Tell us about Poppy.
Poppy's mom was a stray in Chicago. She was found as a stray pregnant. And so we took her in, and she gave birth to 12 puppies.
Wow.
It was the most we've ever, the biggest litter we've ever had. And now they're ready for adoption. He is my temporary foster because he ended up breaking his leg, and he has cherry eye, it's called, which if he wakes up during the interview, you'll see it. So he's just like a special little kid looking for a foster and forever home. But yeah, we've been really busy during the pandemic because in October, we broke ground finally at Big Barn.
Yeah, for people that are listening or watching, we had talked about it on the podcast because you were thinking about it, or you were in talks to do it. So talk to me about the Big Barn.
Yeah, so we had a family who adopted a dog from us, and their passion was dogs, and they ended up buying this land in Salem, Wisconsin, which is just over the border. It's like an hour door to door from Chicago. 70 acres. A 4,800 square foot dairy barn. Well, it used to be a dairy barn, and we are converting it into a shelter. Since we talked, we actually decided to tear down half of the barn and just start over.
Wow.
So we broke ground in October, and construction's going strong. I have a feeling we'll be opening by the fall at the latest, and we'll be able to house up to 30 dogs there. We have specialized suites there for nursing moms. We have whelping suites. We have a retirement suite for a dog that maybe is a sanctuary candidate. They can stay there for life.
Wow.
We've built special suites for behavior dog cases. We have 2 acres fenced in for dogs to run around in. There's so much going on. And then we also have a rescue house, which is just steps away from Big Barn, that will allow us to have, we want to take in medical cases. Erin and I work together on a couple cases, but we want to be able to take in medical cases where if they need 24-hour care, our volunteers could actually sleep in the rescue house with the animals so that they're just getting care throughout the day. So the rescue house will serve as, that, and then our community space for our volunteers and our welcome center. And yeah, we're just so excited. It's a game changer for us.
That's so exciting. I'm really excited for you. And are you going to stay in Chicago as well? Because I know you have a space in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be in 2 locations, which will be exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Can you both or each share maybe a story of a pup that you've worked with, a pup that you've helped, that you feel like really embodies the work of Alive and Wild Hearts? It could be a couple of stories. I know that you probably could write books and books and books about all the animals that you've encountered and even their families. I think it's important to even talk about the people that are taking these pets on as well.
Yeah, so we actually partnered on a dog. We talked about this earlier. So we have a dog that we would love to tell you his story, that we partnered together on his save. And I don't know, maybe I tell the beginning story and then you tell the end story?
Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
So we work with families that come into Chicago Animal Care and Control. Pre-pandemic, we would be there, and if they were surrendering their animals, we would be on site. It was a program called CRISP, and we would either take the animals into our rescue or try to place them into another rescue before they ended up going into the shelter. So we met this family, and we ended up taking in a bunch of their dogs. They had a lot of animals in their house. We didn't realize how many. Months later, they reached out to me again and said that they needed help, and we ended up going to the house, and I don't even know how many dogs were there.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you either.
Wow.
So many
lot.
dogs were there, and it ended up there was a dog there that we took in named LaCroix, and we partnered with Erin, and we took many dogs that day, but he was the most special of all of the dogs we took in from that house. And you want to tell the rest of the story?
Absolutely. So it was obvious he wasn't moving his back legs very well. So that's one of the reasons that we teamed up, with us being specialized for pets with mobility impairments. And so we got him in for a veterinary specialty consult and an MRI and found out that he had spina bifida. And so I ended up fostering him, and he's the cutest little Australian Shepherd puppy. I actually have a tattoo of him. I don't know if you can see it on there, but he was fostering with me for about 2.5-ish months. And over the course of that time, we noticed that he started to have what's called neuropathy. So he was starting to have almost like a tingling sensation, and like if you ever get that feeling when your foot falls asleep or your leg falls asleep. So that was starting to bother him, and he started to actually attack his legs and self-mutilate. So we were under the direction of a veterinarian. I was in constant contact with our veterinary team, sending pictures and updates of what was going on. And it got to the point where he started to become septic. So at that point, the options were to either completely amputate both of his back legs or to humanely euthanize him. And one of the things that I think we both agree on is the importance of quality of life of a pet. And because of the fact that he had a neuropathy going on, we didn't know that even if after the amputation, there's still neurologic deficits that can happen, and he could still have these sensations even though his legs aren't there anymore. So it was a hard day, but we decided that was in his best interest. But we gave him the best care we could for,
he was so spoiled.
4 or 5 months that he was with us. Yeah.
That's I think it's so important, the work that you're doing, but again, it goes all the way back to what you said at the beginning. It's so important for people to work together, because I think you have the ability and the capabilities, Erin, to support Alive and support people in other ways, which I think is just, it's beautiful to see you work together.
And that save specifically, it took 4 rescues total, like including you, to get the dogs out. Like that was just one dog of the many that we ended up taking from that house. So like we all worked together to try to get as many dogs out as possible. And that's like, you don't see that a lot in rescue, people with just rescues working together like that. So we're like really lucky that we have that bond here in Chicago.
And Kristen, are you guys out like on the street every single day? Like how do you find the rescues? Like how do you find the animals? And I'm sure it's a whole variety of different ways. Sometimes people report an animal just on the loose, but how do you actually find out about all these different dogs?
Yeah, so in Chicago, it's mainly us going to Chicago Animal Care and Control, or just because we have a good relationship with them, or we can't actually take in strays technically to our rescue based on a contract that we have with the city.
Got it.
So any stray has to go on a stray hold for a certain amount of days before a rescue can take it in. So if we find out about a stray, we either have them go to animal control for their stray hold, or we do the appropriate things that we need to do as a stray hold in the home. So, sometimes people are calling us like, hey, I found this dog, or Chicago Animal Care and Control is really good. The coordinators there like know the rescue so well, so they know like, oh, if we get in a paralyzed dog, we're going to call Erin, or if we get in a deaf blind dog, we're going to call Kristen. Like they know like what the rescues specialize in. So sometimes they're in contact with us. They'll just say like, hey, we got this dog in, can you come and take a look? So yeah, that's mainly how we're getting our animals. We also have Alive Rescue Memphis. So sometimes we're partnering with our Memphis shelter and taking up dogs from Memphis, but mainly we focus on the Chicago Animal Care and Control animals.
And Erin, what about you getting connected with people? I'm sure some of it is similar, like along the same lines. People reach out to you and say, hey, I have this pup that we're rescuing, or this dog needs support in such a way, but how do you get connected with people, or how do they get connected with you?
I would say that a majority of our connections are through social media. We get tagged in a lot of posts, and a lot of our followers and supporters will tag us if they see a situation arise where they think that we can help. So I feel like that's the majority of how we get our most of our sponsorships. And also, just searching Google searches. We have sponsored pets outside of the Chicago area. We've actually sponsored pets in 6 other countries. Wow. So a Google search of, help with a paralyzed dog, and we pop up. So I think Google has played a large role in that as well.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it at the end of the podcast, but social media is such a powerful force for all these different things. I often tell people you don't have to necessarily donate money. Just follow different, animal rescues on social media. And if you know somebody who's looking to adopt a pet, like tag them in, any of the posts. I know that I do that all the time with Alive. I'm like, I know this person that wants to adopt a pet, or like, look at this cute puppy. I want to make sure that it gets adopted. So I think that social media is such a powerful force like that. And again, it like brings people together. How can we support one another? What are organizations that are doing similar things that we can work together, which I think is really, really important, really critical.
Yeah, like it's vital. We're so lucky that Erin's in Chicago, because what she's doing is such a specialized thing. Like I know, not just with LaCroix, but there's been other dogs that we've rescued that are paralyzed. Even we rescued a paralyzed cat where I was like, oh my God, we rescued our first paralyzed kitten. Like, I don't know what to do. Call Erin, like if we need a cart or a drag bag or whatever, she knows like where to get it, or she has one in storage. So even if she's not fostering a dog or like helping in that way, she's helping with the resources that we need to get a dog, like she was saying, like appropriate diapers, or a specific thing on how to like walk. What are they called? Where you walk them. I don't know. Anyway, Erin's great. She helps with everything.
They can like walk their little feet.
I don't
Is that
even
what you're
know.
talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're just like so lucky, where before, it was intimidating to take in a dog like that. Now we know like we can turn to someone like Erin and just ask questions. Mm-hmm. Where before it was like, oh my gosh, what do I do, So.
Well, and I think a lot of people probably feel that way if they see a dog that has a disability and they're like, oh, it's too much work. I can't deal with that dog, but they're like so cute and they need to go to some family. I know I've seen so many online on different social media pages that I follow, but you just need somebody like you, Erin, that can be like, all right, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. They'll get through this. This is what you need. This is what you need to do. And just having those resources out there is so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we focus a lot on is education, and trying to take away the parts of the overwhelming feeling that you can get, especially if you're a pet owner and all of a sudden your pet becomes paralyzed or has a medical condition that affects them in a way that's at the time hard to kind of conceptualize how to get through it. So I think education is huge, and I love the fact that we have a good team of people available that are able to help walk through that process.
Speaking of education, there is so much misinformation out in the world about so many different things. Like when you were talking about the pups, I was thinking about pit bulls. Like so many people are scared of pit bulls, and then you have like the people that are like buying dogs instead of adopting them. What are some important messages you want to get out there? This is your opportunity to set some of that misinformation straight, but even to encourage people to adopt instead of buying dogs from breeders.
I think the main thing for me, I can just speak for Live Rescue in general, because most of our dogs and cats and rabbits are in foster, so we really know our animals. And I feel like when you're adopting, depending on where you're adopting from, you get more information about an animal's personality and what their quirks are, and what are some things that you might have to work through when they come into your home. So yeah, for me it's just more of just having more knowledge on an animal, as opposed to if you just were to, go get a dog at a pet store or at a breeder, you probably don't know that much about an animal. Look at these two. That's number 2. That just speaks for itself.
They're so cute.
Yeah, but we do, and I may have touched on this the last time we spoke, just we try to place animals with the right family. So if someone applies for an animal, like let's say someone applied for him and we didn't feel it was the right fit, we wouldn't just place him with the family just to, get a dog adopted. We'd say like, hey, we don't think that he's the right fit for you, but we have this other great dog who would be amazing with your family. Why don't you take a look at him? So just working with them. Oh my gosh.
They're so cute.
I can't.
They're cuddling how long it was going to take for them to cuddle. But the two pups.
Yeah. So that's huge for me. I don't know, do you have?
Well, in terms of the stuff that we kind of get bombarded with, I think the biggest thing is making sure people are aware that just because they're mobility impaired doesn't mean that they have a low quality of life. And that they're, just like any other pup or cat or, whatever the pet is, it's just navigating it a little bit differently. And so I have a paralyzed dog that I adopted probably about 7 years ago now. And walking down the street with him in his cart, people come up to me and say, "Oh, poor dog." That's the initial response that we get. And what we're trying to do is change that perception of pets and understanding that just because they're in a cart doesn't mean that they are any different or any less than any other pet out there, that they have a fantastic quality of life, they're happy, and they deserve it.
I love the little pups that you see like on with the little wheelchairs, little carts. They're just so cute, and you see them like running around. They learn how to, go. Or even like pet dogs that have like 3 legs. I've seen so many. I know my sister applied to adopt one recently, and she was like, they can get around. They learn how to. They're very, they're just very able to figure it out, which is incredible.
Yeah, they're resilient and adaptable.
They're resilient.
So resilient. Yeah. I would say like taking in paralyzed animals has become like one of my favorite things because you put them in that cart and they just go, and their spirit is just so infectious. It kind of takes over. Yeah, it's really rewarding for sure.
Yeah.
Would you say anything to people that are, I know you said about if people adopt pets, like the positives of like why it would be good to rescue instead of getting it from like a breeder, but would you have anything to say to people just to encourage them to adopt from a rescue versus like buying a pet from a pet store?
I mean, there's so many other reasons that adopting is more beneficial. A lot of times I've seen with buying from breeders, there's been a lot of health issues with animals. I don't know if it just has to do with like overbreeding. I'm not sure. That's the other thing too, like medically, we know what's going on with our animals, so we can tell people like, hey, this is what to expect in the future. There's such an overpopulation of animals out there, that need homes. So I feel like going to the pet stores or going to breeders is making that situation even worse. When there's so many other animals waiting for homes, like why do that? You could easily go on Pet Finder and find purebred dogs in rescues. Like it's so easy to do. And people say like, oh, I want a puppy. Well, hey,
there are puppies.
We have
we got 2 right here.
We got them. Same with cats. Like we just took in 2 cats that are pregnant. Like we're gonna have kittens. So, yeah, there's just I don't see any drawbacks from adopting.
Yeah, and you mentioned Pet Finder, and it's amazing what people can do. Even just go on and you can get hypoallergenic dogs or check all these different boxes if there's a specific breed you're looking for. If you want puppies,
color, anything.
It's incredible, and there are so many animals, and that's why I wanted to ask you that. There are so many animals that need to be adopted and rescued, and they're beautiful, amazing, sweet little dogs, just like these little 2.
Yeah.
So what's next for both of you? So what's next for, in your dream of dream worlds, we're gonna dream big here, but like 5-10 years down the line, what's next for Alive Rescue? What do you hope that Alive Rescue becomes? And same with Wild Hearts. What do you hope that Wild Hearts becomes? We'll start with you, Erin.
Okay. So I've always had the dream of, if you're local to Chicago, you might know of the Shirley Ryan Abilities Lab. It used to be the Rehab Institute of Chicago. And basically they are the human component of what I want to be for the veterinarian pet owning community. So they have a facility that's standalone that does specialty care. They have, it's almost like a hospital where there's inpatient services, educational components, research. So what I would love to do is to have a facility that would house all of these services in one spot so that pets like Pokey here can have a chance at life. And then also for the pet owning community to come in and have a more approachable and accessible way of kind of getting through and navigating a diagnosis.
That's amazing. Kristen, I know that you shared a little bit about the Big Barn. What's next for you?
I know. I'm like, what comes after Big Barn? I don't even know.
Big Barn's everywhere, all across the U.S.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, for sure, just focusing on Big Barn and getting that up and running. I think that's going to take a lot of time, just because it's not like we're building it in Chicago, where all of our volunteers and our supporters are. Where we now have to start networking up there and building up our volunteer base up there and our foster base up there. So I think it's just going to be a lot of building our Wisconsin community while still, hanging on to our Chicago community. And then how do we merge those, right? So that will be probably taking up a lot of the next few years. I have some other ideas that I have percolating that involve helping animals in other states that really need it, and I'm kind of keeping that on the down low for right now.
We'll have you back.
But I have some stuff going on. It's going to be called a live rescue on the road. I'll just say that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, whenever that starts coming to the forefront, we'll do another podcast episode.
Okay.
And Erin, same with you. I want to do more with you to support you and your work. I want to ask you both, because I'm always curious, what the driving force behind, you shared a little bit about why you're interested in animal rescue, but if you could really get to the heart, to the root of what you do and why you do it, what is that root? What is that?
Good question.
Well, I think for me, how could you not love these types of opportunities and experiences? But I think the biggest thing for me is that there's such a need for it, and there's nobody else doing, for Wild Hearts anyway, nobody else doing what we're doing.
Right.
So we have a lot to accomplish. And so I think that's, for me, the biggest driving force is the fact that there's always a need, and we want to be able to fill as much of that as possible.
Yeah, I always say, put me out of business. I want to go out of business. I don't want there to have to be animals that need to be saved. But I don't think in my lifetime that will ever happen. So they can't take care of themselves. They need us to take care of them. So that's definitely a driving force for me. I know once Big Barn opens, we are probably going to shift our focus to more of the harder cases, just because I think that they need us the most. And so that drives me too, us, we love saving feral dogs, and I think I did talk about this on our first podcast, but watching a dog go from not being able to be touched by a human to go into a forever home, even if it's 2 years, 3 years later, is something that is probably my favorite part of rescue. And having Big Barn is going to really help that. And so, yeah, they drive me. Just walking into animal control, walking to pavilion, seeing the animals that need us drives me. Hearing stories about things that are happening in other areas. I mean, we're lucky in Chicago. We have so many resources here, but there's other communities in our own country that have nothing. And so just being able to think about, the future and helping in those areas, is the drive for me too.
For somebody who's listening at home or watching, maybe it's whoever it is, could be a young girl that, loves animals, just like you both kind of talked about growing up with animals. And you both are doing such innovative work in animal rescue in my eyes. What would you say to them if they want to get involved in animal rescue, or they have an idea that might be innovative or different? I'm sure, Erin, when you were starting the work that you're doing, people were like, why would you do that? Yeah. What would you say to them?
Do it.
That's what I was just gonna say. Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
There's no harm in trying. Give it a shot.
And if it's your passion and you have that drive that if you've already thought of the idea, you have the drive, you will not fail. Mm-hmm. You just won't. You can't fail if you are so passionate about something in your life. You even when you feel like you're failing, like 2020, let me tell you, like, right? I felt like the biggest failure in 2020. We lost so much in 2020, and like so many people did, and so even when I feel like if you're doing something that you love, even when you're on the ground and you feel like you can't get up, you have that passion for what you're doing to get up and like keep going and figure it out. Mm-hmm. And so if you just do it, you'll make it work. Mm-hmm. And don't compare yourself to anyone else. Be your own person, do your own thing, and I think that's what I would say.
I heard the word, and I'm sure you both did too, pivot all the time in 2020, and I always thought about innovation. Like, I think that it's so important to innovate, and even when you have an idea, you're starting something, people might think it's crazy, but if you have a vision for it, you just got to keep pushing forward. So I loved that you both shared that, because I think there are a lot of big dreamers in the world, and you hear that phrase that people say, everyone's had $1 million idea in their lifetime, but I think everybody has had a world-changing idea in their lifetime, but a lot of times we're scared or we're afraid of failure, and there's so many reasons why you don't do it, but we need to push forward because there are animals that need to be rescued, there are people that need to be fed in our country. I mean, there's so many different issues that we could talk about.
And you can start small,
right.
You don't have to start off big. Just start small and even if you saved one dog a year, you still save that one dog, and you'll grow your supporter base, and you'll get to be that place that you want to be. But and also just reach out to people. Don't feel afraid to, I can't imagine if I never reached out to Erin for help. If where would I be? Where would my animals be if I didn't ask for help from someone who could give me that advice? So definitely build a community.
And if I hadn't reached out to you, I wouldn't know Erin. It's so amazing to see how the power that people coming together can have, which is incredible. So for people that are listening at home or watching, what would you say how can they support your work? And then what can they do in their own communities to support or emulate the work that you're doing?
Adopt these two puppies together. They're now a bonded pair. You want to go first?
Yeah, for us, volunteering is always huge, becoming a donor or supporter in some way. Like you mentioned before, hanging out on social media and sharing a post, or just educating, friends and family that might come across a pet on, who Wild Hearts is and what we do, because they might need the help. So I think that's the biggest thing for us is, for us, education is huge, and just being able to pass it on and share our organization with friends and family and others in your community, so that we're able to reach more people and help.
What about you, Kristen?
Yeah, pretty much the same. We always need volunteers. Fosters are huge for us. Attending events, we've been trying to get creative in that we can't do in-person events anymore, and that was a huge part of how we raised money to pay for the medical costs for the animals. So we've been doing a lot of virtual events that people could do, just do from home. So attending a little workshop goes a long way for us. Sharing, like Erin said, on social media, getting the word out. Right now we're trying to raise another $500,000 to build Big Barn. So we have a lot of naming right opportunities there. And then once we open, we're gonna need so many people to help up there, so definitely volunteering would be great. And then Erin and I were talking about this earlier, just how we used to do so many things in the community. We had so many community programs, and we had to stop that in 2020 because we can't, we were doing our reach out days once a month where we took dogs to hospice facilities and interacted with the residents there, and we haven't been able to do that. So once those get going again, we definitely will need help with getting those programs back up and running. And those are near and dear to our heart because it's helping the community too.
Yeah, and there's so many little and big ways, we talked about earlier. There's so many little things. We often think you have to do something really big. You have to start an organization or you have to donate $1 million in order to make a difference. But sometimes it's those little things, every dollar counts, every social media every follow. But reach out to your local animal rescue. If you're here in Chicago, I know you both you need volunteers, but if you're anywhere else in the country or around the world, there are animal rescues that you could volunteer to go and walk their dogs or take on a foster. And so I think we need to look at our own communities too and say, what can I do to help support animal rescue in my own community?
Yeah, and even, going out of town, I love going out of town to places where I could actually help the animals in that community too. So you could volunteer your time, no matter where you go, when, there's always a need. Yeah.
So for people that are watching, how can they get involved how can they get in touch with you? What's your social media? What's your website? I'll be sure to post it in the show notes, but where can they get connected with you? Kristen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so our website's aliverescue.org, and all of our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, is all Alive Rescue. So
great.
Pretty easy.
Awesome.
For us, it's gowildhearts.org or .com. Both of them will get you to us. And then our handles on social media are gowildhearts.
That's awesome. Well, I will be sure to post all of those in the show notes if people want to get in touch with you and find out more information and support your work. I'll make sure that it'll be easy for them. Before I let you go, and Kristen, you already know this, I always end this podcast on one question, so I'd like to ask both of you.
I don't remember that.
If you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
Oh, did we say go for it or just do it?
That could be your message.
I mean, yeah, just follow your dreams. I don't remember what I said last time, probably that. I feel even right now, the pandemic's put such a perspective on life for us that I feel in this moment, people are more willing to take chances. Just take the chance. Don't hesitate. If you have an idea, try it. If it doesn't work, try it a different way. Just keep trying until it works. If you're doing something that you don't like in your life, do you want to do that forever? Probably not. Take the chance and do something that you love that makes a difference.
I love it.
Yeah. For me, I think, and I think this is reflective of this entire podcast and everything that we've discussed today, but the power of one. So it just takes one person, one idea, one interaction, one form of communication to make a difference. So I think that's my takeaway, is the power of one.
It's so true. And I love the stories of the one girl. It's called One Girl Revolution, but it really is an army that's behind each and every woman. And I know that's both of you. You have so many amazing people that work with you and supporters. And so I just want to shout out everybody who's supported your work and hopefully will continue to support your work. But Erin and Kristen, thank you so much for being on the One Girl Revolution podcast. And thank you for all the great work that you do.
Thanks for having us. It was
thank
fun.
you. Thanks for the opportunity.
And thanks, Pokey and Poppy.